Children's Services. Julia Talbot, Coordinator of Special Projects, will be presenting information on application tips and eProcurement. Julia will join us a little later on in the presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce Thomas Mose, who is assisting with the technical aspects of this webinar. Tom will walk you through how to submit questions at the Q&A portion of the webinar. Tom.
Thanks a lot, Bea. Hi, everyone. My name's Tom Mose, and I work at the Department of Family and Support Services and Children's Services Division. And as Bea said, I'm working remotely today, and I'm going to provide technical assistance. So just want to let you know, if some of you are on your computer audio, it's always best to use your telephone and dial in so you hear voices clearly, because sometimes I'll respond to people if they can't hear the audio. But so far, I've been told the audio sounds good on our end. And I'm going to help with reading some of the questions at the end. So what you do is, in your panel, on your right-hand side of your screen, you have a dashboard panel, and you can type your questions in, and we'll reserve time at the end of the PowerPoint to go over some of your questions that I will read out loud. And just lastly, a recording of this webinar will be posted on the DFSS YouTube channel. And Julia and Bea can go over how the PowerPoint presentation will be able to be available too after today. So thanks a lot, Bea.
All right, thank you, Tom. So if you'll go to slide 3. Created in 2009, DFSS provides a comprehensive, client-oriented human service delivery system that employs a holistic approach to improving the quality of life for our most vulnerable residents. DFSS supports services that enhances the lives of Chicago residents, particularly those most in need from birth through their senior years. DFSS provides families with the resources they need to not only create a strong developmental and educational foundation for their young, but also across the lifespan by coordinating services for vulnerable youth, adults, and elders through its various program divisions. Next slide. In 2016, DFSS launched a strategic framework with a mission dedicated to its community, residents, and families that seeks to improve the lives of all Chicagoans. Next slide. DFSS has contracted with agencies to carry out direct, high-quality services to enrolled children and families. We are guided by these 3 priorities: to maximize access to high-quality early learning programs, by matching investments to community needs, and reducing barriers to access, improving the quality of our programs in order to meet children's needs, and creating a system of supports and reducing the administrative burden of our providers. Next slide. We serve vulnerable families in low-income communities and provide high-quality, developmentally appropriate services that wrap around the child and the family. In order to do this, we ensure a child's health and physical needs are met. We engage the parents and understand that in order to support them, we must recognize that they belong to families who live in communities. Chicago early learning sites are in those communities and funded by DFSS to operate programs like the Federal Head Start program and the state-funded Preschool for All and Prevention Initiative programs. And now, Nicole Kraft will be describing the scope of the Nutrition Support Services RFP. Nicole?
Good afternoon. Currently, the Department of Family and Support Services contracts with a network of 100 direct service delegate agencies across 351 sites. These program services may be delivered through center-based, licensed family child care homes, and home-based home visiting models, and may operate full or part year. The Children's Services Division uses support service providers with particular areas of expertise to supplement its management of programs and provide training and technical assistance to a variety of audiences, which may include the Department of Family and Support Services and the Children's Services staff, as well as direct service delegate agencies and their site staff. It's important to note that the subject matter experts will not deal directly with the children and families, but rather will provide consultation and training and technical assistance to leadership, managers, and direct service staff. The Department of Family and Support Services uses support service delegate agencies to ensure that Chicago early learning programs and their management meet 3 broad objectives, which include: 1, the implementation of best practices in early childhood development and education; 2, compliance with relevant federal, state, and local performance standards; and 3, improved outcomes for children and their families. Next slide, please. The Department of Family and Support Services is seeking a support service delegate agency that can help the Children's Services Division and its direct service delegate agencies and site achieve the following priorities. 1, strengthen nutrition services systems, including relevant policies and procedures that ensure nutrition-related program performance standards are met, both across its network of direct service delegate agencies and sites and at individual agencies and sites that fail to meet CSD nutrition-related monitoring performance measures. And 2, develop innovative and effective practices for improving children's nutrition and food security at the grassroots level that can be delivered through a direct service delegate agency's daily or ongoing practices and improve nutrition outcomes for low-income children and families. Next slide, please. Next, we'll talk about staffing. The Nutrition Services Support Contractor will be required to develop and deliver training sessions and provide technical assistance and consultation in the area of nutrition services. DFSS intends to contract with one entity to provide services citywide that can meet the following required qualifications and conduct the following required activities. The contractor must have on staff at least one registered dietitian nutritionist or licensed dietitian who can serve as the primary consultant to CSD and co-chair the Health Services Advisory Committee and its nutrition subcommittee. The contractor must identify a project manager who will serve as the point of contact to schedule and coordinate all activities related to the support service contract. Next slide, please. The contractor must demonstrate the staffing capacity and experience to conduct the services and activities required of the contract, which will include approximately 3 to 6 full-time employees with experience providing training, technical assistance, and other forms of support related to nutrition services. The contractor must demonstrate expertise in children's nutrition and healthy development, community health, and its impact on child development, social determinants of health, and how they impact children's health and development. The contractor must demonstrate a working knowledge of one or more of the following and demonstrate the capacity to acquire expertise in all of the following: nutrition requirements for children ages birth to 5 in Chicago early learning programs, including Head Start program performance standards, Chicago Early Learning Standards 2.0, the Illinois Early Learning Developmental Standards, the Illinois Early Learning Guidelines, the Illinois DCFS licensing standards, and Child and Adult Care Food Program. Next slide, please. The contractor must demonstrate the ability to interpret nutritional policies that affect children ages birth to 5 and pregnant and nursing women. They must demonstrate familiarity and compliance with all HIPAA and Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act requirements, FERPA. Lastly, they must demonstrate experience providing training and technical assistance to adult learners on topics related to children, families, and nutrition. Next slide, please. On this next slide, we are providing a list of resources so that you can receive a full understanding of Chicago Early Learning Program standards as it relates to nutrition. We will also make sure that this information is posted and included with the slides. So you will receive this information at a later time. Next slide, please. Next, we will discuss the performance measures. DFSS will monitor a set of performance indicators that may include but are not limited to: 1, direct service agency compliance with Head Start program performance standards, along with the Illinois Early Learning Guidelines and the Chicago Early Learning Standards 2.0. 2, pre and post training surveys that assess the impact of training on attendees' knowledge. Next slide, please. The Department of Family and Support Services also intends to track output metrics that may include, but are not limited to, the number of trainings provided, the number of intensive training and technical assistance provided, the number of completed direct service agency training plans and/or corrective quality improvement plans, the number of community partnership collaborations that are supported, the number of hours provided for the Head Start Advisory Committee and subcommittees, the number of parent trainings conducted, the number of materials for parent education created and distributed, the number of delegate and partner agency site observations and consultations conducted, the number of individual child and pregnant mom nutrition plans supported, as well as the number of individual agency nutrition and consultation provided. This concludes my presentation regarding the performance measures, and I'll hand it back over to Dee.
Thank you, Nicole. Now we'll review the selection criteria. Strength of proposed program. Applicants will be asked to respond to questions related to the required core elements, which are identified in the program description of the RFP. An effective program model for the right target population and desired results. In this section, you will probably be asked to describe approaches to education, training, nutritional issues, and trends, and describe any innovative strategies you have employed. You may be asked to describe your agency's approach to providing intensive training and technical assistance to organizations that may be failing to meet program standards. Next slide. Under selection criteria, program performance, outcomes, and quality. This is where you describe how your agency has performed in the past and if the agency is committed to performance management and measuring outcomes over the last 12 months. If relevant, you can upload any report, studies, or documentation that will demonstrate the results and accomplishments of your program. We may ask you to describe any current and past relationships with community nutritional health partners. You may want to describe a collaboration that resulted in improved nutrition outcomes or food access for children and families. You may want to describe at least one partnership that resulted in better outcomes for child and community health. Refer to performance reports or other documents you uploaded to further demonstrate your point. Next slide. This section is organizational capacity. We will ask you to describe relevant staff positions and qualifications, how your organization monitors program expenditures and ensures appropriate fiscal controls and records are in place, policies and procedures, including hiring practices and the ability to fill essential positions in a timely manner. Next slide. Reasonable costs, budget justification, and the leverage of funds. Does the agency have the financial capacity to operate the program, cash flow, and capacity to expend funds prior to reimbursement, matching funds, including in-kind contributions that you will use for this program? Consider your program costs. Are they reasonable, given the nature of services provided and requirements for this program? Next slide. So that ends the programmatic section. But we also want to outline the deadlines that you must meet in order to submit a successful application. The due date for this RFP is June 23rd, 2020, and you would have to have it in by noon. You will have to be registered in our system to submit, and Julia's going to go over that in a minute. We are not accepting any emails or fax proposals. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Julia.
Thank you so much, Bea. So the next part of this presentation is going to go over the physical logistics on how to apply for this RFP using the eProcurement system. We're going to go, let's see, I have setting it up here. Let's see if I can get, whoops, here we go. So I hope that this is, everybody can see my screen here where we walk through. So just talking about, in general, talking through the technical assistant aspects, if you're a new applicant and you haven't ever applied to the city for anything, or you don't have a contract with us, here's basically how you're going to get started, and some of the aspects or some of the things that we have, the resources we have to help you submit successfully an application in the eProcurement environment. This slide will be posted along with the webinar up on our website, on the DFSS website, with a link, as well as in eProcurement. We will do an amendment with with answers to any questions that come out of this technical assistance session today, and and Bea will also be sending out a copy of the PowerPoint to everybody who attended today, who might be who might apply. So here we go. So what I like to tell people in terms of doing an application is that you need to first start register into the iSupplier and eProcurement process. That's going to take maybe 3 to 5 days to get your registration up. You set it up, you send the application over to the city's procurement department, and then they email you something back. I cannot stress this enough in terms of starting early on doing your application. Start early, be thorough. The system doesn't crash. At least it hasn't in the 3 years that we've been working on it, but it is somewhat, it's a rather complex system, And I like to tell people to give themselves, 15 to 30 to 60 minutes to do the submission. It's not just a hit, submit, and go. So like, just give yourself a lot of time. We love it when we see people turning stuff in the day, or turning stuff in a day early, just because we know that they're in then. Every time we have an RFP, somebody misses the deadline, and we cannot accept late proposals without reissuing the entire RFP, which would be really unfair to everyone who had gotten their proposals in on time. So when you're looking to submit an RFP or write an application to us, I really recommend that you read the RFP document that we have posted as an attachment into the eProcurement application.
Hi, Julia.
Yes.
This is Tom. On my end, I've been told that we can't see your screen yet. Was there a button that you're supposed to hit, or should I? I never got that. Let me try to do now and see. I'm sorry.
Well,
hello, Julia. Let me see. Did you get it now?
Yeah.
Okay. If you can load up your screen. Sorry about the technical difficulties, everyone, but we've been practicing this, and I think we're just getting it down. So thanks a lot for holding on. All right.
Great.
Thanks, Julia.
No problem. So starting early, we're going to start early. You're going to look at the scope of your of the program in the RFP. The scope is going to describe what we're really looking for in terms of what the job is of, should you get this contract. And it aligns specifically with the selection criteria, which is also listed in the RFP. And the selection criteria and the scope then roll up into application questions, which are all aligned with the selection criteria. And the evaluation tool is built off of the selection criteria and the evaluation and the application questions. So if you are like, find a question and you're not entirely sure what the background, go RFP for further guidance, or email them, and their emails are all over the RFP document. But that RFP has a lot of information in it. They're dense documents to kind of read, but there's a lot of information, and there's sort of a lot of guidance as to what the department is really looking for in a contractor. And you can call that, be or no. The selection criteria that we've set out in terms of guiding maybe what if you're not sure of what the answer should be, or what we want to hear, those are very good guideposts in terms of determining it. Every application question, you fill out an application question in sort of a text box. That text box is limited to 4,000 characters.
Hi, Julia. Again, this is Tom.
Yes.
Can you share the screen back with me, because people can see you talking, but we can't see the text. So it's good to see that this is working, but if you can share the screen back with me, I can.
Yeah, there we go.
And I'll load up that previous slide.
Thank you. Here we go. Sorry about that.
If I'm going to show my screen now, and I'll pull it up. Just 1 second, please. Everyone hold tight. Okay, so you went over technical assistance, and then you were on the application tips.
Yeah, we're on slide, we would be on slide 21. Right.
Okay,
so,
everyone should be able to see my screen now. Okay, just let me know when to go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
So we were talking about the 4,000 character limit, and that includes punctuation and spaces. Since the eProcurement system isn't going to tell you when you hit that 4,000 characters, we really recommend that you write your answers to your questions in a Word or word processing document and do the counts there, and save your application questions to a Word document, or the application questions and answers to a Word document, because once you submit, you actually don't have access to your submitted answers. The system doesn't provide that. And so if you want to know what you said, really the only way that you're going to be able to get it is through a document that you saved, as opposed to going into eProcurement and seeing it. eProcurement works best on Internet Explorer as a browser. I actually have used it successfully in Chrome and Safari, but the people who built the database, programming, suggested that it works best on Internet Explorer. The one thing also to know is, do not use the back button on your browser when you're navigating in the eProcurement environment, because then what happens is that it will do what you want, but it will sort of stop saving your work and eventually kick you out without having saved your work. So don't use the back button on the browser. Do your character counts and save your answers to a separate document. And those are sort of some of the operational requirements. Going to the next slide. One of the nice functions of eProcurement is that you can submit your application early, and then if you decide you want to add something, change something, upload something, take something away, you can always draw your application back up until the due date. So the application is due June 23rd at 12. You can, you're working on it over the weekend, or you're working on it on June 10th, and you're like, oh, I want to submit this. And then you realize later, oh, I didn't want to submit this. I want to change something. Something's changed. I need to change it. You can take that application back out of up until the deadline. You can take it back. You can make your changes and then resubmit it. So that's one nice function. As I said before, avoid the rush and possible mishaps by submitting early. Plan on your submissions taking 15 to 30 minutes, if not a little longer. Late applications are never accepted, and you should make use of either myself, and my number is sort of all over the RFP and the internet as technical assistance for RFPs for DFSS, or you can call the eProcurement hotline at 312-744-HELP. Make note that the hotline operates Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Sometimes you will have to leave a message, and they will call you back within 48 hours or 2 business days. I generally try to call or email people back within 24 hours. And we do keep a contact, we do keep a record of everybody that calls, all of us. And so, there's no need to call us multiple times. There's no need to shop around for an answer. We will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. So now we're going to go to the next slide. We're going to talk about how to accept an amendment in the eProcurement environment. So generally speaking, we do an amendment if we have to do a correction or a change. We also do an amendment to upload the webinar or any frequently asked questions that we've been getting as part of the webinar, or from the webinar rather. And you actually have to accept an amendment. You will, if you've already started an application, you'll get a notification when you go back in that the application has been amended. If you're starting the application from and it's already been amended, you will have to accept the amendment before you can really start working on, either going back into whatever you started or starting the application, which was termed starting a quote before. And so this is just some of this is the stuff that you have to do to accept the amendment. So this is the screenshot. You log in, you see this warning sign that says that your amendment, your RFP has been amended, and that you're going to need to start you're going to accept the amendment to start the application. So first, what you do is you're going to hit the create quote button and hit the go. You're going to go create quote from that actions drop down menu, and then you hit go, and that's going to take you to the application page where you can get started. And then to begin the acceptance and acknowledgement process, you're going to open the RFP in view only and click on the document, which I have circled here, the document number, which is the amendment number, or the RFP's number, and then the comma number past the whatever amendment it is. So in the first amendment will be comma 1. So you click on that. If you want to look to review the changes, you're going to click on the little eyeglass icon, and that's going to give you a screen where it says exactly what was changed. Like it will read like, oh, if there's an error, it will refer to specifically what the error is and what the change was and what the thing used to say and what it says now. Most of the time we're just uploading questions, and it will say like, hey, here we have some frequently asked questions we want you to look at. And so after you've looked through 1 and 2, you're going to acknowledge your amendment by pressing on the acknowledge amendment button that I have circled and labeled 3. And by acknowledging the amendment, you're indicating that you are aware of the changes made in the RFP via this amendment, which means that like you probably should read it, because sometimes we say like, oh, the funding amount changed or the due date changed or any number of like rather critical things have changed, and you want to be aware of that by accepting the amendment, where you're basically saying that you have read and you understand, and and that you accept responsibility for the knowledge contained in the amendment. Next slide, please. So after you've acknowledged the amendment by reading it and thinking about it and whatever, you're going to get to the screen where you have to accept you accept that the terms and conditions outlined in the amendment, which you do by checking that really small box. And then you're going to click on the acknowledge button and that will take you to the next screen and slide, where you confirm your acknowledgement of the amendment by checking or clicking on the yes button, which will take you to the next slide, where you accept the terms and conditions outlined in here. So you accept, and then at the bottom of the page, you check another really tiny box saying that you acknowledge and accept the amendment, terms and conditions, and then you hit the accept button, which I have circled and put number 2 on, which will then take you to the next screen, which is you're done, you've accepted your amendment, and now we can talk about my other favorite topic, which is how to submit an application in eProcurement. So as I said, sometimes, it's not just when you go to submit your application, much like the amendment, you go through like multiple screens on how to do this, and it's not uncommon to get error messages. I find that the error messages are sometimes written a little cryptically. It's hard to figure out what they want, but we're going to go through some of the more common ones that talk about how to submit successfully. But it is a rather lengthy process. It's not just a one-step click and whoosh, it's gone. And that's why we really tell people, set aside some time, set aside 15 or 30 or 60, an hour to figure out, to give yourself the time to do this and do it in a not rushed, not tense fashion. So when you're ready to submit your application, you're going to start by saving your draft one last time, which is indicated on the Save Draft button here. And then you're going to, after you save the draft, you're going to hit Continue, which will take you to the next screen. And so this is where if you may or may not get an error message. And if you're missing information, the error message is going to be at the top of the page, and it says error. And generally, it sort of writes, it's in keywords, it will say, in this case, it says you must quote on at least one line in the RFQ. You'll notice right below, there's a little tab that says header and a little tab that says lines. And so you're going to go to the lines section for that one to resolve that particular error. We can go to the next slide. So there we go, and so then you're going to go to the lines tab, and and if you click on the line on lines, you'll find that that's a sheet that had not been filled out. We can go to the next slide. And this example, the error is about an unanswered question in the application, which is known as the requirements section. And a quote value is the way that the eProcurement system refers to your answer. So requirements, the shorthand here is the requirements is the application question and the quote value is your answer. And so here they're saying a quote value is required for requirement first name. And that means that you would go to the thing that sort of says first name and you would fill it out. You know, every question has sort of, you know, a heading to it. They're usually pretty logical. And when you get these, so if you say, you know, a quote value is required for first name, you'll go into the application questions and see maybe you forgot to put in your first name or you didn't answer a question. So let's go to the next slide. So once your application is free from errors and you're ready to proceed and submit, and so at this point you're going to, you know, save your draft again, and then you're going to hit and then by clicking continue, that you will get into the review and submit phase, not the error phase. Next slide. And so you're going to hit, I'm sorry, could you go back a slide, Tom? I forgot to say something. So you're going to save draft, and then you're going to hit when you're ready, the submit button will be highlighted and you'll be able to hit that. So now we can go on to the next slide. After you hit the submit, you will get one last chance to review all the data and confirm that it is accurate. Check your attachments, and you can scroll to the bottom of the screen to see all your responses. We'll go to the next slide. At the bottom of the screen, you'll be asked to provide an electronic signature. So here's a little trick, pro tip here. You need to fill in the signature in the boxes before you check the little box saying that, you know, that this is you. If you check the little box first and then fill in the signature, you get an error message and you have to go back. So the way you go about this is you type in your name, your title, and then you check the box. And then you're going to hit, you're going to hit submit. Can we go to the next slide, which is, we'll hit submit there. And then you'll get this submittal confirmation screen. A new function that we just built into eProcurement is that you'll get a confirmation email. But that confirmation email will usually take, will take up to 24 hours to appear in your email box. So if you are submitting and you're worried, you can always call me. I am happy, or email me, and I'm happy to confirm the submission. And usually I'm a lot quicker than 24 hours. And so I think, so let's go with the next screen. So yeah, so that's really all I have to say about eProcurement for today. I'm more than happy to answer any questions via email. I'm also happy to answer any questions. You can call me, and I can always just stress, like, please just submit early. It's a better work for us all. At this point, I think I'm going to turn it back over to B, and we're going to, I guess, open this up for questions if we have questions. And thank you for your attention to this.
Thank you, Julia. And thank you all for your attention. So there's our information, Julia and myself. Even though our division has a central Dropbox, I prefer that you reach out to me via email or by telephone. And if you can't get a hold of me, then we'll make sure that we get some information to you for Nicole Craft. So I guess we're just waiting if we have any questions, Tom.
Yes, B, I don't see any questions that have come through. Otherwise, everything has run pretty smoothly today. And if I see one come through in the next 10, 15 seconds, I'll make sure to let you know.
Okay. And they may just prefer to reach out directly. Either way. But thank you all for being on the webinar today, and all of the panelists that participated, Julia and Nicole and Tom.
Oh, I didn't see any more questions, V, so
All right.
let's
Well, thank you all, and we will make this PowerPoint available to you. Thank you. Goodbye.